The sky was stained red, resembling the aftermath of a brutal massacre. Blood soaked the ground, pooling between lifeless bodies as rain poured relentlessly, washing over the countless corpses scattered across the battlefield. Piles upon piles of fallen soldiers lay motionless, creating a grim sea of death. In the middle of this devastation, Ronan leaned heavily on the handle of his sword, his head resting on his hand. His face was smeared with blood, and his eyes stared downward at the lifeless scene before him. Slowly, he raised his head, taking in the chaos surrounding him. What a ton of various dead peoples. Damn it, a voice cut through the silence. Ahiyuti completely and utterly failed. Ronan's head jerked upward, his sharp gaze locking onto the source of the voice. Giant continued, to think there exists a human this powerful. Ronan lowered his gaze briefly before snapping back with a growl. You fucker, you are still alive? Ronan was standing on the chest of massive giant, a being with long feathers flowing from its form and a sharp horn protruding from its head. The giant was almost lifeless, sprawled on the blood-soaked ground. The giant Ahiyuti, after appearing in the Empire 20 days ago. It was the last of the 3 giants that had brought about destruction with an unknown goal. Ronan stepped forward and slammed his boot against Giant's face, his voice sharp with anger. Half of the Empire land became a graveyard, and all thanks to you. So why are you still alive? The giant's voice rumbled faintly in response. Do not freed, for it will not be long. Ahiyuti will soon return to their embrace. Ronan's expression twisted in frustration. Good. Your friends that died before you are waiting. The giant's voice came again, hollow and distant. Friends? Ronan sneered, yeah, the 2 bastards that descended with you. One of them got caught by a nasty red dragon and was burned to a crisp, and the other was sealed for eternity by a geezer called Lorehorn. Ronan's lips curled into a bitter smile as he continued. You deserve that, you damn scumbag. The giant's deep voice carried a haunting calmness. Do not conceal the return with your shallow words, powerful one. The children of the stars can share their sense with each other, and I know that those 2 challenged them dead in the process as well. Furthermore, it means that powerful ones like you no longer exist in this land. Ronan let out a short, dry laugh. What bullshit are you spouting when I am completely buzzing with life here? But the giant's voice remained steady. Do not bluff. I know that your time will soon come to its end as well. It is truly a relief. If you had realized your talent much sooner and concentrated on your training, you would have been a huge obstacle to our grand will. Ronan's teeth clenched in anger as his patience began to snap. You fucker, you are being saying this shit for a while now. Yeah, I lived a completely fucked up life. You do not have to remind me, so shut up and die already. The giant's voice rumbled one final time. You are an impressive human, so proud of yourself. However, in the end, your world has vanished, buried by the strength. Ronan could no longer bear to hear another word. With a swift motion, he drew his sword and slashed the giant's neck in one clean stroke. Ronan stood on the massive body of the fallen giant, his gaze fixed on the distant sun and the haunting massacre stretched out before him. Slowly, he stepped down from the giant's lifeless form, his boots sinking slightly into the blood-soaked earth. What do you want me to do when it's already past that? The rain poured down relentlessly, mixing with the faint streaks of tears on his face and washing them away before they could fall. His eyes wandered across the battlefield, where the lifeless bodies of his companions lay scattered. He walked towards them. So you all were gathered here, you idiots. What honor could you possibly have to fight until you die? Did you guys think that just because I was a little strong, you could be strong too? You should have taken the hint and run away. Ronan knelt down beside one of his fallen comrades, his hand reaching out to gently close the man's lifeless eyes. Acting like an idiot until the end. Just why? Against those giants, those monstrous beings who carried the aura of the Empire's strongest swordsman, why did only my sword work against them? If that wasn't the case, would it have been possible for someone who wasn't a penalized soldier to lead the attack? Perhaps you guys wouldn't have died ahead of everyone then. I just don't know anymore. His head hung low as he closed his eyes, regret and sorrow etched into every line of his face. Suddenly, a faint voice pierced through the sound of the rain. Is there no one here? Ronan's eyes snapped open, his head turning sharply in the direction of the voice. The voice is. You are alive, he said, hope flickering briefly in his tired eyes. The voice called out again, louder this time. Anyone? Ronan's heart raced as he muttered to himself. She's still alive. With the support of his sword, he struggled to rise to his feet, his body trembling with fatigue. He made his way toward the source of the voice. Leaning against a large stone sat a girl. Her uniform was stained with blood, and one of her arms had been completely severed, the wound still fresh and bleeding. Ronan approached her, he spoke softly. So you were still alive? Ronan noticed her bleeding arm in shock. He said, General Adeshan. Ronan walked towards her, his tired eyes locked on her fragile form. Why are you in that condition, General? General Adeshan looked up weakly and replied, Are you Corporal Ronan? The same goes for you. Other than that, is Ahiyuti dead? Ronan stepped closer, finally sitting beside her. Yes, I killed him. His corpse isn't far away from here. She sighed faintly. I see. So he's dead, thanks to Corporal Ronan. Ronan remained silent for a moment before forcing a faint smile. Pointing a trembling finger upward, he said, If you're that grateful, please listen to my request. She frowned slightly. Your request? Yes, he said softly. About how to settle their bodies. We were originally supposed to get rid of them, or burn them, but we didn't. They were quite hard this time. General Adeshan glanced at him and said, Well, you're in a better state than I am. Isn't it better for you to handle it yourself? Ronan chuckled bitterly. Good. Goodness, General has a good sense of. His words were cut short by a violent cough, and thick blood splattered from his mouth onto his trembling hand. He held it up to her. See? Me, in a better state? I might as well be dead. There were so many things I couldn't do because I was working so hard for nothing. It's unfair that I'm about to die right now. Adeshan stayed silent, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she softly asked, If you survive, is there anything you'd like to do? Ronan let out a weak laugh. There are too many things. He looked up at the sky. But well, the one thing I can think of currently. I wonder what it would be like if I had entered the academy, she asked. The academy? He replied, Yeah, the giant earlier said something ridiculous. It irritated me. Like my dead sister's wish. She wanted to send me to the academy. But now, I think we'll be reuniting soon. General Adeshan's lips parted as if to offer hope. As soon as the rain stops, the search party might, but Ronan interrupted her sharply. I told you, it's over for me already. Why do you keep talking nonsense? At that moment, the rain suddenly stopped. A ray of sunlight tore through the thick clouds, casting an ethereal glow over the battlefield. Ronan's eyes widened. What? The rain stopped? Adeshan, still leaning against the stone, muttered in disbelief. The heavy rain stopped all of a sudden, but before they could process the moment, a powerful gust of wind surged through the battlefield. They both froze as an enormous impact shook the ground beneath them. Ronan's voice trembled. What? What is that? Before them stood an entity with 8 wings, its massive form radiating an overwhelming presence. Surrounding it were countless other entities, some with 4 wings, others with 3. Ronan shouted in shock, Who are those people? He staggered to his feet, gripping his sword tightly, his thoughts racing. Why did they come? Where did they come from? General Adeshan, still slumped against the rock, stared ahead in horror. Don't tell me, there weren't only 3 giants. In the end, I couldn't even save myself. For the 3rd time now. If only. If only I had another chance. If there's another way, Ronan turned to her sharply. General. Get it together, hurry up and use your psychokinesis to lift me up. Damn it, my blade can't reach them. Clenching her teeth in disbelief, she replied, What? Ronan roared, Aren't we going to kill them? She hesitated. You're going to fight, in that condition? He gripped his sword tighter, Of course. Would you rather sit there and do nothing? Even if I die, shouldn't we at least destroy these pieces of shit? He swung his blade fiercely, his anger pouring into every movement. Adeshan watched him in silence, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and admiration. He hasn't given up, despite everything. He's always been that sort of person. That's why he made it this far, this man. Summoning her remaining strength, she stood up. Steadying herself, she placed her hand on his shoulder. Corporal Ronan. He turned his head slightly, not looking back. What? I'm busy, don't disturb me, but his words stopped as General Adeshan suddenly leaned forward and kissed him. His eyes widened in shock as a glowing blue lightning ball transferred from her mouth into his. He staggered back slightly. What? What did you put in my mouth? She leaned close to his ear and whispered something. Ronan responded with disbelief, What do you mean? She continued whispered. He yelled in frustration, Stop talking nonsense now. With her final breath, Adeshan spoke weakly. Corporal Ronan, if we ever meet again, can you tell me to not do something so useless and just become a tailor instead? Ronan stared at her in shock as she smiled faintly. She continued, I've done all sorts of jobs, but not that. Before he could respond, a massive burst of energy hurtled toward them from the giants in the sky. The blue lightning ball inside Ronan burst, unleashing a blinding light that consumed everything around them. When the light finally faded, Ronan opened his eyes and shouted, General. Errol. In front of him stretched a peaceful, familiar scenery. His voice trembled as he spoke. This is impossible. Don't tell me, this place is. He looked around, his heart pounding in his chest. It's my hometown. Nimberton. Did I really go back in time? Special note, first day since regression. Ronan sat on the field of grass, his back leaned against a sturdy tree trunk. He shook his head, trying to make sense of everything. What the general said, was it really true? His mind replayed the scene vividly, the moment she had approached him. She had leaned in, pressing her lips against his, and slipped something into his mouth. Ronan muttered, She just shoved something in my mouth. Her voice echoed, What you just swallowed is a marble that rewinds time. That's the secret of how I rose to a general's position when I was still just a mere tailor. The marble allows a total of 4 returns, but I have already used 3 of them, so you have only got 1 chance. I have decided to pass that on to you too. It's because I believe that the key to stopping the end of the world is the strength which allows you to cut through the giants. She had leaned closer and spoke near his ear, As much as it is, you too should train that ability more and more. But I am relieved, you are quite greedy for it on your own. If you want to learn, go to Philion Academy. It's a place where outstanding people gather, so it will definitely help you. And Corporal Ronan, if you happen to meet me again, can you tell me to just go tailoring instead of wasting time on nonsense? I have tried pretty much everything, but there is nothing else like it. Back in the present moment, Ronan shook his head against the tree. Damn it. Gosh, is this real? Snap out of it already if it's a dream. Whatever the case, if you simply send me to the past abruptly like this, what the heck am I supposed to do here by myself? He froze for a moment, as realization crept over him. Wait, the past. He fumbled with the wooden stick beside him, gripping it tightly as his thoughts raced. That means I can meet Nona again. Without wasting another second, Ronan pushed himself up and started running, his stick clutched firmly in his hand. If I've actually returned in time. I just have to go a little further. As he sprinted down the path, a strange scene stopped him in his tracks. His eyes widened at the sight before him, a boy hung upside down from a tree, suspended not by ropes, but by an invisible force, magic. A group of bullies stood nearby, their laughter echoing in the air. The hell, who are those bullies? What are they doing, hanging that kid there? Those types of guys had no difference, even in the old time. His sharp gaze zeroed in on the faint glow around the boy's body. What, that kid isn't being held up by a rope, but magic. There's no way such advanced magic, something not even used on the battlefield, exists in a random village like this, huh? Thinking about it now, there was that guy here around this time. His eyes shifted to a figure standing slightly away from the bullies, a girl. Her hands trembled faintly as faint wisps of magic danced around her fingertips. It was clear she was the one holding the boy up. Assel spoke, "How much longer are you planning to do that? At this rate, that kid is really it's really going to get really bad." The boy hung helplessly, his voice trembling as he sobbed, "Please stop it. I really do not have money. This one's medical bills for my mom were really high." The golden-haired bully laughed mockingly and stepped forward. Hey, so what am I supposed to do about that? Am I supposed to care about your mom's health when taking money from your pocket? He raised his hand and slapped the boy across the face with a loud smack. The other bullies grinned wickedly, their cruel amusement growing. The golden-haired bully turned toward the Assel with an annoyed expression. "Hey, it looks like he's still not right in his head yet. So just send him all the way up the tree." Assel hesitated. I cannot do that. If I accidentally drop him after raising him up that high," the bully scoffed and stepped closer, his voice sharp. "You're no wuss, are you? Why are you that scared? It's not like you're the one hanging up there. Just shut up and send him higher, Assel, before we hang you up there along with him." Fear flashed across the Assel's face as she froze in place. Her mind raced with self-blame. How did things come to this? Was it my fault for learning magic in the first place? I just wanted to show that I, too, am good at something. I have to tell them that I cannot do it now, at least, but I'm too scared. No. I still have to say it. She stammered out, Please stop." Ronan approached from behind and tapped his stick lightly on the Assel's back. He said, "That's enough, bastard. That kid's going to die." Assel flinched, her concentration breaking for just a moment. The magic holding the boy in place snapped, and he fell to the ground. The bully's face contorted with rage as he shouted, "What the fuck? What the hell are you doing? You really let him drop just because that bastard told you to? Am I a joke to you?" Assel stammered, her voice trembling, No. I didn't do it on purpose. Ronan, hey Assel, forget about that piece of trash. Talk to me for a minute." Assel hesitated, glancing between Ronan and the bully. Ronan continued, "From now on, I have some work for you." The bully's face darkened as he growled, "You son of a bitch. Just because I'm being cool about this," but Ronan ignored him, said to Assel. "Where did you learn telekinesis magic?" Assel fidgeted nervously and replied, I just learned it myself from a magic book I bought from a vendor." Ronan raised an eyebrow, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "You gained this skill, just from a low-quality magic book? That's pretty amazing. Although I'll have to check some more, even this much would help when dealing with giants." The bully, his patience running thin, drew his sword. Ronan's eyes narrowed as he heard the blade being unsheathed. Ronan thought, a sword? Where did this punk get a real long sword? The bully stepped forward, his expression twisted with anger. "You! How dare you ignore me? I guess you're not afraid because I let you win a few times long ago. I'll fix that fucked up attitude of yours today." He lunged forward with the sword, but Ronan easily sidestepped the attack, his movements smooth and effortless. The bully froze mid-strike, his eyes wide with disbelief. He dodged it that easily? Ronan thought, although my body has definitely gone back in age, it looks like the battle sense beaten into my bones through punishment is still intact." The bully laughed maniacally, raising his sword again. "Ha! You're quite lucky. I was planning to make sure you'd never lift a spoon again," Ronan said with sarcasm. "Right. I'm quite lucky today. My entire life's been pretty bad until now." The bully snarled, "At least beg. Beg for forgiveness right now, and maybe I'll spare your life. Of course, you'll have to leave behind an arm or something." Ronan's eyes narrowed. "Oh my, how scary." The bully added, "And if you die here, I'll make sure to take good care of your older sister." Ronan froze. His breath hitched, and his eyes darkened with pure rage. The bully grinned, continuing with venom in his voice. "Every time I saw your sister, I couldn't help but notice, their tight and jiggly ass would be nice to grab." Before the bully could finish, Ronan swung his stick with precision, cutting off the bully's ear. Blood immediately started pouring from the wound. The bully's eyes widened in shock as he dropped his sword onto the ground, clenched his side of his head with both hands till he screamed, "My ear! My ear!" Ronan stepped forward, his expression cold and unyielding. "Hey, you little son of bully, did you want to die?" The companions of the bully clenched their teeth, their faces twisted in disbelief. "Does this make any sense? He cut someone's ear off, with a branch?" Ronan turned his sharp gaze towards them. "Hey, you trash, why are you just standing there watching? If you don't want to end up like him, take this guy with you and get lost. Oh, and of course, you're leaving the money you scammed off him. Add a little extra too, for putting me in a bad mood." One of them stammered, "Why yes, we'll give it to you." Ronan handed the pouch full of money to the boy. And said, "Hey, this is your." The boy hesitated, his hands trembling as he took it. This is. Are you really giving me all of it? But the amounts weigh more than the price of medicine." Raising the sword of bully which they left behind, Ronan smirked slightly. "Just keep it, I'm already satisfied with this anyway. And don't worry about them getting revenge. Those guys won't even be able to lift their hands, let alone swing a sword." The boy's eyes welled up with tears, and a faint smile spread across his face. Thank you so much." Ronan waved him off. "Alright, enough of that. Go home already." Assel stepped forward hesitantly. Excuse me." Both Ronan and the boy paused and looked at her. "Huh?" She lowered her head, her voice trembling. I'm really sorry. No matter how much Hans threatened me, I knew I shouldn't have done that. But I was scared. I couldn't stop myself. It's all my fault. I'm really sorry." The boy turned back towards her with a soft smile. "Assel, you've been crying like this since the first time Hans dragged you into this mess. Seeing you like that, I thought you must have been feeling just as scared as me." He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "So, don't blame yourself too much, Assel. It's not your fault, but still, thank you for apologizing." Ronan watched the exchange and let out a small sigh, thinking, "Oh well, I guess you're not totally a bad person." He turned his attention to her. "Hey, remember when I said I had some business with you earlier?" She nodded hesitantly. "Han, right, all right." Ronan turned his back to her, already walking away. "Good then. I'll see you again in 3 days." She blinked in confusion. "Han? After 3 days? What do you mean?" Without turning back, Ronan waved a hand casually. "I'm a bit busy right now, so I'll see you then. When the moon rises, just to make it romantic." His voice turned sharp and showed this sword to her, saying, "As for what'll happen if you don't show up, well, you already know, even if I don't tell you, right?" She froze, her face turning pale with fear. Ronan continued walking away. "I'm leaving first then. You're dead if you come late, okay?" Assel muttered, "What? What was that? Ronan stood in front of the door, clutching a bouquet of flowers tightly in his hand. He thought, I guess flowers are a little excessive. But I remembered that Nuna liked them, so I cut the stems just the way I saw it. Quickly turning around, he muttered, I knew it. It's better to throw these away. At that moment, the door creaked open and Roman's older sister, Yiril, stepped out. Huh. I was wondering who was outside, and it turned out to be you, Ronan. Are you coming in now? Ronan froze, then slowly turned back towards her. He thought, I've imagined this moment over 1,000 times during those endless battles. If I ever got to see Nuna, Yiril, again, what would be the first thing I'd tell her? Should I say sorry for leaving without a word? Should I tell her I missed her terribly? I wondered about it so much, I thought I'd lose my mind. But those were the stories that only Ronan from that time could tell. So what I am about to tell you right now, is, Yiril smiled gently. You're home early today, my little brother. Ronan's voice trembled slightly as he said, yeah. Then, looking down, he added, I'm home, Nuna. Inside, the table was covered with delicious food. Yiril held the bouquet of flowers in her hands and smiled brightly. Oh my, I didn't think there'd ever be a day when I'd receive flowers as a gift from my prickly little brother. She let out a soft laugh. I'm so happy. Ronan said with a faint smile, I'm glad you like them. Nuna asked, are you full now, my cute little brother? Do you want more stew? Ronan raised his hands, signaling no. Thanks, but I've had enough. His expression turned serious. Anyway, I have a question. How old are you this year, Nuna? She blinked, confused. Gosh, Ronan, I'm 22. Why are you suddenly asking? Ronan hesitated. I just, kind of couldn't remember. Her face grew concerned. Huh? Is there anything else you can't remember? Does your head hurt? You don't have a fever, do you? She reached forward, placing her hand on his forehead. Ronan thought, if Nuna's 22, then the time left until this guy's arrive, is about 10 years. Her warm hand rested on his forehead, her brows furrowed in concern. She asked, I does looks like you have a fever. Ronan thought, Nuna's still the same bright, gentle, warm. How I wish moments like this could last forever. But in 10 years, to protect this world and my sister, I will. He grasped her hand gently. I have something to say, Nuna. She asked. What is it? He said firmly, I want to enter the academy. Her eyes widened in shock. What? The academy? Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she grabbed his hands and shook them. Seriously? Say it again. Do you sincerely mean those words? Ronan nodded. Yeah, I do. She was practically bouncing with joy. What happened? You didn't even pretend to listen to me before. Wait, I shouldn't be idling like this then. She rushed to a cabinet, rummaging through its contents. I knew this day would eventually come. You've always been a smart one, Ronan. I knew you'd do well. Ronan emotionally said. Oh thanks, Nuna. She pulled out a large pot and set it in front of him. They both peered inside. Ronan's eyes widened. This is, money? Why is there so much inside a pot? Nuna smiled proudly. I've been secretly saving it up to surprise you. Because if you ever wanted to enter an academy, I wanted to be able to send you right away. Ronan's voice softened. Nuna, you're really amazing. How did you even save this much? But, please use this for yourself. Honestly, you didn't have to do this. She frowned. What do you mean? This is still quite a lot of money, even though I'm not sure which academy you had in mind for me to attend. Ronan said firmly, Imperial Philion Academy. Nuna froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Huh? What? Imperial Philion Academy, a prestigious institution hailed as the Empire's finest. With exceptional academic personnel gathered from every corner of the empire and backed by the immense resources of the imperial family, it offers an unparalleled level of education. It's often referred to as the factory that produces heroes. Legendary figures such as General Adeshan, Sword Saint Shulapin, and even the most feared criminal in history, the Winter Witch, have all emerged from its halls. Recently, Philion graduates had proven their worth in the war, their contributions leaving little room to question the Academy's reputation. However, with fame comes infamy. Its rigorous acceptance standards and astronomical tuition fees make it nearly impossible for ordinary people to even dream of entering. Yet, despite all of this, Nuna had reacted with such unwavering confidence. Her words echoed in Ronan's mind. Yeah, if it's you, Ronan, you should be able to do it. Now, with a backpack slung over his shoulder, Ronan walked towards the academy, his thoughts swirling. Well, I'll let the results do the talking. It doesn't matter to me anyway. He glanced over to the side and muttered, I didn't actually think you'd come out for real, Marcel. From behind a tree, Assel stepped into view. It's not Marcel, it's Assel. And you were the one who said I'd be in huge trouble if I didn't show up. Ronan waved off her comment casually. Let's ignore the small details. Tonight, we're both going to be busy, and I have something to test on you. Dropping his backpack to the ground, he looked at her expectantly. Assel blinked in confusion. Test? What do you mean test? What are you doing all of a sudden? Ronan pointed his thumb at himself with a confident grin. It's nothing serious. Just try using your psychic powers on me, the strongest you can manage. Assel took a step back, her face pale. You want me to use my psychic powers on you? Wait, why would I do that? Ronan said, don't worry. It's not dangerous. Just do as I say. I won't die from it, so stop hesitating. Reluctantly, Assel raised her hands. Oh, okay. Magic began swirling around her fingers as she whispered, invisible hand. She extended her arms, and waves of psychic energy surged towards Ronan. Slowly, his body began to lift off the ground. Floating in the air, Ronan thought, oh, would you look at that? This is much more impressive than I expected. The sensation of being suspended in the air brought back memories. Though the stability and peak still have a long way to go, this sensation, it feels familiar. Just like during that decisive battle against Ahiyuri, it must have been psychic magic that allowed me to face him in aerial combat as an equal. Psychic powers are an essentially hard talents to find amongst an already rare number of mages. Someone like Assel will be essential in the final battle against that bastard. From below, Assel's voice wavered. Ronan. I can't hold on any more. Can I please put you down now? Ronan drew his sword mid-air. Hold on a little longer. I just need to confirm one more thing. I'll handle the landing myself. Assel's eyes widened. Wait, what do you mean you'll handle it yourself? How? Before she could finish, Ronan swung his sword downward. A sharp arc of energy sliced through the air, and he landed smoothly on the ground. Assel froze, her eyes wide in shock. Did you just cut through my mana? Ronan, what was that just now? He sheathed his sword nonchalantly. It's nothing big. Let's just say it's a trick I've been able to do for a while now. Assel stomped her foot. What do you mean, a trick? I've never heard of you being able to cut through mana. Ronan lightly tapped her head with his fist. Just let it go. I don't really know why I can do it either. His thoughts darkened briefly as he reflected. This strange ability of mine, it's homework I've given myself. The reason why my sword worked against him, it must be this. Shaking off the thought, he grabbed the strap of his backpack. Anyway, Assel, you passed the test. He tossed one of the backpacks towards her. Carry this and follow me. We have something to finish before the moon sets. Assel caught the backpack clumsily and asked, okay, but what are we doing this late at night? Ronan smirked, his eyes gleaming with determination. What else? It's something that'll become chapter 1 of the Ronan saga, the greatest historical record in this world. As they walked along the path, Assel glanced at Ronan with wide eyes. Philion Academy? I misheard that, right, Ronan? You're going to that Philion, where only the highest elites of the Empire gather? You and me? Ronan let out a sigh. So you did hear correctly. Why are you repeating it back to me? It's annoying. What, do you not want to go? She hesitated. No, I don't think that's the main problem. You're talented in martial arts, so you'll be fine. But, there's nothing I know how to do. And I'm cowardly and timid too. Ronan stopped walking and looked at her seriously. Hey, Assel, do you want to keep living like that? Assel froze, her eyes showing a mix of confusion and concern. He continued, his voice firm. I'm asking if wasting your innate talent just to appraise some punks is the life you really wanted. She opened her mouth to respond, but Ronan cut her off. Honestly, you've got a fair share of stupidity in you. Not only are you cowardly and timid, but you're also a crybaby who tears up at the slightest thing, and you're always a frightened little scaredy cat. Assel flinched, his words cutting deep. But then, Ronan's expression softened slightly. But you know what? None of that really matters because those are things you can change from now on. However, you can never change the time you let slip away, Assel. Someday, somehow, you'll come to regret it. In his mind, Ronan thought, just like I did in my previous life. Out loud, he asked, so? Any change of heart now? Assel stared at him, her heart pounded. She thought, oh my God, to think Ronan cares this much about me. She placed a hand on her lips, overwhelmed by emotion. Ronan turned around, starting to walk away. I won't force you, it's your life, after all. You can head back if you want to. That'll be it, then. I'll be off. But before he could take another step, Assel called out, wait, Ronan. I want to change too. I'll go to Philion with you. So, teach me what I have to do. Ronan turned around, a rare smile crossing his face. Good. You're acting like a man for the first time, Assel. Assel stood a little straighter, determination flickering in her eyes. Yeah. Ronan smirked. Then why don't we immediately start your first training for what's ahead? As they continued walking, they eventually arrived at a shadowy clearing. Behind a patch of thick bushes, they could see them, Luna goblins. Some were sitting in small groups, some were sprawled out asleep. Assel's breath hitched as she crouched behind the bush. So, this is my first trial? Ronan grinned confidently. Of course. I found the perfect opponents to sharpen your skills instantly, the Luna goblins. And lucky you, there's even a whole horde of them. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. How are they, Assel? Don't they look like complete small fry at a glance? Assel stared at the goblins in disbelief, her thoughts racing. What is he talking about? Ronan stood up and cracked his knuckles. Now then, why don't we get started? The Luna goblins, a mutant species that roams this region. Their yellow skin and ugly bodies set them apart from regular goblins, but their most defining trait is their obsession with gold and silver. Bastards enjoy carrying sneak attacks on merchant and looting their treasures, and gathering them all for a grand feast, and they only celebrate such feasts on nights with a full moon, just like tonight. Assel's eyes widened in fear as she crouched behind the bushes. So, you're saying the reason we're here today is? Ronan said, yeah, that's right. Today we are going to lug all of that treasure. She hesitated, I've never heard of them before. About these goblins that know how to haya their treasure and hold a feasts. Ronan, how do you know all that? Ronan taking out his backpack and casually replied, well, there are ways to know these things. But in his mind, he thought, of course, I didn't tell her that I encountered them in my past life while wandering aimlessly. Wrapping an arm around Asel's shoulder, Ronan spoke confidently. Anyway, while they're still asleep, all you have to do is move the treasure using your telekinesis and drop it into this bag. What do you think? Simple, right? Asel's face was drenched in sweat. It doesn't sound simple at all. What if I make a mistake and those guys wake up? We'd be screwed, wouldn't we? That's too dangerous, why not we reconsider? Ronan sighed and gave her a sharp look. Gosh, you're such a coward. Listen carefully. If we want to get into Philion Academy, we need two things. He raised two fingers. First, money, since we have to pay Philion ridiculous fee. Second, a practical experience. Money may be an issue, but honestly, this is much more important. As you know, Philion is a place where nobles who have received elite education since birth are gathered. Do you want to win while competing against the guys like that? Then there's only one way: peeling off unreal practical experiences with your life on the line. He looked towards the goblins and said, and for that, those guys are the perfect opponents. There are both money and experience. It's like killing two birds with one stone. Now, am I wrong, or do you have a better solution? She hesitantly said, no, but he said, it's decided then. Shall we get started right away? With her telekinesis power, she one by one took the material of treasure and started to transfer it into bags. Ronan said, okay, just a little more, now just like that. Drop that. Ronan looked towards the bag, it was full of treasure. Coins, beads, daggers, very valuable things. Ronan said, very nice, with this, the last bag is full. He patted her head and said, what did I tell you, Asel? I told you practical work is the best, didn't I? She smiled and said, yeah, this worked. He thought, I was honestly quite doubtful at first. I did not expect us to get used to practical work this quickly. She is much better than I thought. I have found myself someone good. Then, looking into the bag, he said out loud, all right, since we have filled our bags, let's wrap it up. She said, really? It's over now? He said, yeah, there is nothing else for us to do, so let's wrap it up here and return before something bothersome happens. As Ronan and Asel were about to go, they stopped when they heard a voice. Two men having arrows in their bag running towards the crowd shouting, damn it, you damn cocky bastard, stop right there. Ronan and Asel froze for a moment, both visibly confused. Ronan frowned and muttered, which retards are creating a fuss so late at night? The noise had stirred the goblins. One of them sat up abruptly. KRR. What was that, KRR, who making a fuss at this hour? Its gaze fell on the empty treasure chest nearby, and it gasped, KKRK? What the, KRRR, where are all our shiny stuff go, crack, thief, KRRK, what, a thief? KRR? KRRK, where is the thief? Their sharp eyes scanned the area, finally spotting two figures. It was Ronan and Asel. Ronan thought, fuck, this has gotten real messy. Asel let out a loud, panicked shout as Ronan threw his backpack onto the ground with a heavy thud. Asel stumbled and fell to her knees. Ronan exhaled sharply and said, that's right, I was wondering why everything was going so well. Asel's voice trembled as she stammered, what do we do, Ronan? Maybe we should throw these bags behind and run away. Ronan said. Throw what behind? How are we going to pay our tuition fees without these? Are you going to earn it yourself? Asel said, but, that's not what's important right now. The goblins closed the distance. Asel's voice rose to a panicked scream. They are here, Ronan. Ronan tightened his grip on the sword's hilt and drew it fully. His eyes scanned the approaching goblins, and he thought to himself, a long sword made of cheap steel. With this weight and strength, I hope it will last around 15 hits at least. There are roughly 30 of them here. 3 goblin lunged at them, its clawed hand reaching out for Ronan's face. Asel shrieked in alarm. Ronan, watch out. Ronan's focus sharpened. He swung his sword in a clean, powerful arc, slicing through the air with precision. In one strike, he cut down 3 goblins in a single motion. Assel stared at him, her mouth hanging open in shock. Ronan straightened up slightly, his blade dripping with dark goblin blood. Now with this, there is only 14 left. How can it be? Under the moonlight, crows cawed ominously in the distance. Ronan slammed his sword into the head of one of the goblins and said, "Is this the last one?" "Well, I guess." Assel, still sitting on the ground, stared at him in shock and thought, "No, why? What did I just see?" With a single blow, he killed the 3 goblins rushed at him head-on, even the group of goblins rushing behind them. Ronan just disappeared for a bit and appeared again in a flash. But to think he created such a scene. Ronan turned around, his expression sharp. "What are you doing? Are you going to keep losing your mind like this?" She quickly replied, "Oh, sorry, I could not help it." Resting his sword on his shoulder, Ronan said casually, "There is no need to be sorry. Just quickly pack your things to go home." They both started trekking back home, heavy backpacks weighing down their shoulders. Ronan twisted his shoulder uncomfortably and said, "This is hard, really hard. I thought we were going to travel comfortably for once. But as I thought, nothing comes easy." Assel groaned in agreement. "So heavy." Ronan muttered to himself, "Sore muscles just because of fighting a few goblins? Is it because my body has not grown enough yet? I will have to start from intense physical training once I return." As they walked, Assel asked, "Ronan, what was that loud screeching earlier?" He replied sharply, "How would I know? Why would you scream so loud during a moonlight, you bastard? You must have lost your mind. Just see, once we find out who it was, I will make sure to make them pay for our suffering." Suddenly, from behind, an arrow whizzed through the air, aimed directly at Assel. She caught sight of it from the corner of her eye and spun around in alarm. Ronan shouted, "Oh, fuck, what is this?" In a flash, he caught the arrow mid-air, just inches away from her. Assel screamed, "Arrow, where did this come from?" Ronan looked around warily and said, "Is this damn forest haunted? Why are there so many lunatics around?" Ahead of them, 2 men emerged from the shadows. One was holding a bow while the other had a knife. Ronan squinted at them and asked, "Who are you?" The man with the bow smirked. "Huh? What? They were people? And real babies at that." Irritated, Ronan snapped the arrow in half. The man continued awkwardly, "We are sorry for that, guys. Something was rustling from far away, so we thought you were monsters or something." He turned to his companion and said, "Oh my, we almost killed living things, didn't we?" Ronan saw a man looking towards their bags. "What a lot of bullshit you do. You cannot even hide your gazes." The men froze. "Huh?" Ronan pressed on, "Stop that lousy acting of yours and just answer me properly. Who are you people?" The man with the bow laughed nervously. "Come to think of it, we were so out of it that we have not even introduced ourselves, have we?" The other man, gripping his knife, smirked and said, "You see, we are Caraballo." With that, he leaped into the air, aiming his blade at Ronan. Ronan's eyes narrowed. Caraballo? He caught the man's arm mid-air, twisted it, and delivered a sharp punch to his chin. Blood spurted from the man's mouth as he staggered back. Ronan growled, "Those trash bastards, dot." The other man lunged forward with a dagger, shouting, "You son of a bitch." Assel cried out, "Ronan." In response, she activated her telekinetic power. The man froze mid-strike, his body locked in place. He stammered, "What? I cannot move." Ronan glanced at Assel with a small smile. "Oh, Assel, nice." Without hesitation, Ronan grabbed the dagger from the frozen man's hand and slashed his body apart. Assel gasped in horror. "Ronan, did you kill this person?" Wiping a streak of blood from his face, Ronan said coldly, "Then do you want me to spare the guys running at me to kill me?" On top of that, did not you hear that those bastards said they were Caraballo? Assel hesitated. Caraballo? Ronan explained to her, poaching is given, and even from kidnapping up to human trafficking, doing all kind of bad deeds, the worst poaching group in the empire. He walked towards the fallen man, gripped his dagger tightly, and stabbed him without hesitation, saying, "You know well, had it not been for me, you would have been killed and buried with all your organs stolen off. Keeping these bastards alive while knowing who they were is actually a crime you breathed. So, stop making a fuss and just take your belongings." Nearby, the large pouch bundles the two men had been carrying had fallen to the ground. Just as Ronan and Assel turned to leave, one of the bundles suddenly started moving. Ronan's eyes narrowed as he shouted, "What's with this bundle, why is it moving?" Assel, still cautious, asked, "Why were these people carrying this though?" Slowly, they approached the bundle. Ronan knelt down, and together they began untying the rope securing its top. As they worked, Assel muttered, "By any chance, were they carrying the animals they poached?" Ronan replied, "That may be the case. Well, we'll find out once we open it." Finally, the rope came loose, and the bundle opened slightly. Inside, two glowing blue eyes stared back at them. A crow emerged from the bundle, flapping its wings. Both of them looked up with a puzzled expression. Ronan said, "What is this chicken head?" Ronan looked at the bird and said, "What is this chicken head? It has blue feathers." Assel's eyes widened with excitement as she said, "Ronan, it's my first time seeing this blue bird." He replied, "It's my first time too." Then, noticing the shackles on the bird's claws, Ronan frowned and said, "These shackles, is that Caraballo's trap? It disturbs the restricted target's mana and limits their movement." Caraballo poaching shackles. He placed a finger on his chin thoughtfully and said, "I heard people occasionally use this when they are trying to capture illusion species." Then, is this blue bird? Suddenly, behind the blue bird, a glowing yellow ring-like structure formed, and a voice said, "Hello, please answer." It's finally connected. Assel flinched, her face filled with panic, and she lunged towards Ronan, trying to hug him while shouting, "The bird is talking." Ronan pushed her away with an annoyed look and said, "Do you really think so, you idiot? You mean, you can't tell it's using a communication magic spell?" Ronan thought to himself, seeing how it managed to connect as soon as it came out of the bag, then that bag must have a function that enables it to block mana. He then asked aloud, "Are you the owner of the blue bird?" The bird replied, "Yeah, that's right. I am Valen. I am currently doing research on illusion species in the Institute. I am the guardian that dream burr. I mean, Marpez. No matter how much I tried to connect, it was always interrupted. I was wondering if I had to report this, but this is such a relief. Pardon me. But who are you?" Ronan smirked slightly and said, "We are just a pair of kind passers-by who happen to be here. We somehow got into a fight with poachers who kidnapped this guy." And while doing so, Ronan paused briefly, then added, "These memories were too talented to get the blood to explain. In some reason, we managed, in summary, we managed to save him." Owner responded, "What? Poachers kidnapped? I was only considering it, but to think it was really kidnapped. I am greatly indebted to you then. How should I repay you?" Ronan's face lit up slightly, and he said with a grin, "No, no. Forget about that. How do we return this guy? It looks like it's having a really hard time because of the shackles. Will it fly away on its own if we release them?" The voice replied hesitantly, "Pardon? Huh? Yes, it should. The dream bird originally has a strong homing instinct. So if you just release the shackle." Ronan unsheathed his sword with a confident look and said, "Good. Sounds good then." He raised his sword and, with a precise strike, cut through the shackles in the middle. As the pieces of the shackles clattered to the ground, Ronan said, "Go back to your dad, Blue." The bird looked at Ronan with wide, puppy-like eyes. Ronan said, "You do not need to worry anymore." The bird then turned around and showed its back to Ronan. Confused, Ronan asked, "It's shoving its asshole onto my face right now. What's going on here?" The owner's voice came through. "It wanted you to pluck a feather from it before leaving. It means it wants to meet you again next time. The plucked feather of the dream bird has a unique trait." Ronan plucked the feather carefully. The owner continued, "It's able to point in the direction of the main body, acting like a camper." "Did you pluck the feather? Then when you come to the institution later, make sure to bring it and find me in Marpez. I will be sure to repay you." With that, the bird flew away at an incredible speed. Ronan, visibly shocked, thought to himself, "It's so freaking fast." Assel, looking at Ronan's hand, asked, "What's that on your hand, Ronan?" Ronan said, "Come to think of it, I feel something stinky." When he looked closer, his face twisted in shock as he exclaimed, "What is this?" A few days later, the Caravel merchant trope leader, Dune Caravel, examined a blue necklace closely and said, "Oh, should I look at this from its jewel value or the craftsmanship skill? This is a really excellent item too. I can give you 20 gold coins." Ronan and Assel showed him all the treasure they had stolen from the goblins. Dune continued, "To think this is the quality of all the items you brought. It seems like I am in great luck today to be able to serve such special guests." Ronan smiled with satisfaction and said, "Finally, someone worth talking to. The other merchant tropes called us a bunch of scammers. I was slowly about to lose it, but I finally found a merchant trope with a conscience. It was worth the effort roaming around this place." Dune shook hands with Ronan, laughed, and said, "It's an honor that you think of us that way. Other than these, is there any additional item that you would like to entrust to us?" Ronan put his hand in his pocket and said, "Then by any chance, does this thing count?" He pulled out an egg-shaped object with a galaxy-like color and said, "I am not looking to sell it, but I am curious about what it is." Ronan thought to himself, "This is the thing that the dream bird, blue bird, or whatever it was, left behind. At first, I thought it was its poop, but then that wasn't the case. Out of caution, after testing it by throwing it towards a rock, I was able to confirm that this item was incredibly tough. I don't know if this is that brat's, chicken, egg, or something, but all in all, it's a precious byproduct of an illusion species. It may be a treasure with incredible value." Dune stared at the egg-like object and said with hesitation, "This color, this feeling. Don't tell me this is." Ronan's eyes lit up with excitement, but Dune finished his sentence with, "Horseshit, isn't it?" Ronan's excitement immediately disappeared, and he snatched the egg back, saying, "Of course not, a juicy." Dune chuckled and said, "Right. I do not think I know what this is. It does look unusual, though. I think it would be better to ask about this at a more specialized place." Ronan placed the object back into his pocket and said, "Well, I do think I will have to do that. Now that things have turned out like this, I won't be able to sell this, even if I am curious." Assel, standing behind him, smirked and said, "It's tough shit, huh, Ronan?" Ronan ignored her and asked, "Then do you sell any books related to Philion by any chance?" Dune raised an eyebrow and said, "Philion? Are you talking about the academy?" Ronan nodded and said, "Yes, we are trying to apply for the entrance exam at Philion, but we have too little information." Dune smiled knowingly and said, "Aha, so you are entrance applicants. You came here just in time. My daughter is currently applying for Philion too. She might be able to help you. Come to think of it, she should be coming home by now." Just then, a girl walked in and said, "Huh? What's going on, Dad? Who are these people?" Dune gestured towards her and said, Speaking of the devil. That girl is my one and only daughter, Maria." The girl had long hair and striking green eyes. When Ronan turned around to look at her, his eyes widened in shock, and he thought to himself, "What? Maria that brat?" Dune continued, "Maria, greet them. They are special guests who just made a very big deal with us today." Maria said, Really? These little babies that smell like greenhorns?" Dune shouted, "You brat. What kind of way is that to talk? He quickly turned back to Ronan and Assel and said, I apologize. She grew up in a merchant troupe, so her tongue is a bit sharp. Assel quickly said, No, 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 it's fine. I am fine with it, but, then she glanced at Ronan and added, but Ronan may not be. Ronan ignored her, walked closer to Maria, and said, Hey, are you really Maria? Maria raised an eyebrow and said, What? Ronan continued, that Maria with Sen as her middle name? Maria replied, That's true, but how did you know that? Ronan stared at her intently and said, Oh, that's strange. You definitely resemble him. But the person I know is certainly. He paused for a moment before saying, Then let me ask you one more thing. Come closer. Maria hesitated and said, I mean, what are you trying to say? Ronan goes closer to her ear and said, So by any chance, do you have that dangling things down there? A dick?